1859, the southwest of Australia. A ship pulls into the port of Geelong. Inside the ship, there is a wooden crate, and inside the crate, 24 rabbits. It looks normal, even harmless, maybe a little cute. 24 small, fluffy, big-eared rabbits. But these 24 rabbits would become the smallest and most unexpected invasion army in history to change the fate of a country. Do you know how many rabbits live in Australia today? 10 billion. Yes, you heard that right. 10 billion rabbits. Approximately 400 times the population of a country. And this number is not the result of a natural event, but of a single decision made by one person. This story is one of the most fascinating examples of how good intentions, or simple nostalgia, can turn into an ecological disaster. And it all began when a British farmer said, "I'd like to enjoy a bit of hunting." Thomas Austin. The owner of a large farm in the Australian state of Victoria in 1858, this Englishman is actually the protagonist of an ordinary immigrant story. He came to a continent far from England, bought land, built a farm, started living his life, but something is missing. Austin misses England, or rather, he misses something about England, hunting. That traditional English hunt on wide fields on cool autumn mornings, with friends, dogs, guns, and those small, fast animals everyone chased after, rabbits. Austin writes a letter to his nephew. "Can you send some rabbits from England?" he says. "Just a few. I'll let them loose on my farm, hunt them from time to time, live a little piece of the old days." The nephew receives the letter, he finds the rabbits, and in 1859, 24 rabbits are shipped by boat to Australia. At that point, this story is one of harmless nostalgia, a small request from a man who misses his homeland. Who could blame him? When the rabbits set foot in Australia, it is as if they are opening the gates of paradise. Think about it. In Australia, rabbits have no natural predators. In England, there were foxes, weasels, hawks. Each one was a hunter that kept the rabbit population under pressure and maintained the balance. But in Australia, none of these exist. Then there is the climate. The southern regions of Australia are tailor-made for rabbits. Warm, dry, rich in grassland. Perfect for multiplying. Then there is the soil. Australia's ground is soft and well-suited for deep digging. Rabbits are naturally skilled at building burrows. And yes, here they can put that skill to full use. And then there is this fact. Australia's native ecosystem is not prepared for a species coming from outside. This ecosystem, which evolved within itself over millions of years, does not know how to respond to a sudden pressure. In short, Australia is like a perfect paradise for rabbits. Food is plentiful, no enemies, easy shelter, ideal climate. And the rabbits waste no time in seizing this opportunity. The breeding rate of rabbits presents nature's most ferocious mathematics. A female rabbit can give birth 4 to 8 times per year. 4 to 8 offspring each time. These young become capable of breeding within 6 months, and their offspring enter the same cycle. Even tracking these numbers on paper gives you a headache. But in Australia, this mathematics became reality. The 24 rabbits Thomas Austin released reached millions within 10 years. 10 years later, from 24 rabbits to millions. Austin organized hunting parties on his farm in the year he released them. He invited friends, readied guns, and chased the rabbits. The first year was enjoyable. The second year was still enjoyable. But at some point, even Austin began to understand the enormity of what he had set in motion. In 1867, Austin hunted 200,000 rabbits on his own farm in a single season. And despite that number, the rabbit population did not decrease. The rabbits spread across Australia like a wave. Starting from the southwest, they advanced in every direction. Approximately 100 kilometers per year. An unstoppable, unpredictable, unblockable advance. What did they leave behind wherever they went? only bare earth. Australia's native vegetation had developed over millions of years by adapting to the unique conditions of this continent. A gentle, savov indecidir, gentle, delicate ecosystem with its own balance. The rabbits devoured this ecosystem in the most literal sense of the word. Grasses were eaten, shrubs were eaten, the roots of seedlings were eaten. The top layer of soil was damaged. Erosion began. The wind swept the soil away, the rain washed it away. When rabbits entered a region, that region first became bare, then began moving toward desertification. And this struck not only the farmers, but the entire ecosystem. Australia has unique animals found nowhere else in the world. The delicate vegetation that forms the habitats unique to this continent for kangaroos, wombats, bandicoots, and dozens of other species began to be erased by the rabbits. One species arrived, and in its wake, an ecosystem entered a process of collapse. By the time Australians understood the situation, the war had already been lost. But the fight began nonetheless. The first solution? Hunting. Millions of rabbits were hunted. Their skins were stripped. Their meat was eaten and exported. Canned rabbit was even sent to England. For a period, Australia became the world's largest exporter of rabbit meat. But this was no solution. No matter how many were hunted, the rabbits reproduced faster. The second solution, a fence. In 1901, Australia made the decision to build one of the largest structures in history, the Western Australia Rabbit-Proof Fence. The goal? To stop the wave of rabbits advancing from east to west. This fence is 1,833 kilometers long, running from north to south through the interior of the continent. Construction took years. Thousands of workers labored on it, a tremendous feat of engineering. And it did not work. The rabbits dug under the fence, jumped over it, found gaps. Years later, Australians realized the rabbits had already crossed over before the fence was even completed. The enemy had gotten inside before the wall was finished. The third solution? Poison. Poisons mixed with food rabbits enjoyed were scattered across vast areas. Millions of rabbits were killed, but billions were still alive. Every solution was tried. Every solution worked partially, but none could solve the problem. Because what they faced was not just an animal. What they faced was a biological machine operating under perfect conditions at its most efficient reproductive cycle. In 1950, a new approach arrived, and this time the solution to be tried was very different from the ones before. Myxomatosis, a virus of South American origin. It causes a fatal disease in rabbits, but is harmless to humans and other animals. Australian scientists tested and examined this virus for years and finally approved it. In 1950, infected mosquitoes released into the Murray Valley carried the virus to the rabbits. The result? Shocking. Within 2 years, 90% of Australia's rabbit population was wiped out. Farmers looked at their land with joy. The vegetation began returning to its former state. Erosion decreased. It seemed as though the nightmare was ending. But it did not end. The rabbits evolved. Natural selection protected those individuals whose immune systems were resistant to the virus. These individuals bred. Their offspring were more resistant. Their offspring's offspring were even more resistant. And within a few decades, Australia's rabbit population was back in the billions. This time with a resistant, stronger herd, armed against the virus. In the 1990s, a new biological agent was tried. The rabbit hemorrhagic disease virus, again effective, again temporary. The rabbits evolved again and are still resisting. The fight continues to this day. Now let us take a step back and see the full picture. What has happened since the 24 rabbits Thomas Austin released in 1859? Australia is today the country grappling with the world's largest rabbit invasion. The rabbit population is estimated to have exceeded 10 billion. The annual damage to farmers runs into billions of dollars. The destruction of vegetation threatens or has completely wiped out the native species of dozens. Australia has become the continent with the world's highest rate of mammal extinction over the past 200 years. Rabbits are, of course, among the biggest culprits behind this loss. Think about it, 24 rabbits. One man's homesickness, a wooden crate on a ship, and the changing fate of a continent. History is sometimes written by decisions this small. Thomas Austin died in 1871. In the years before his death, he had witnessed the scale of what had unfolded. He had seen how his own land was being destroyed. It is reported that he once said, "The introduction of a few rabbits could do little harm and might provide a touch of home, in addition to a spot of hunting." This sentence entered the records as one of the most costly misjudgments in history. Could do little harm. Some people never fully understand the meaning of the decisions they make. Austin may not have been one of those people. Perhaps he did understand. Perhaps he spent his final years bearing the weight of the mistake he had made. But his understanding changed nothing. The rabbits had already spread across the continent. The machine had long since started running. And stopping it was no longer something any single person could do. What does this story teach us? Perhaps its simplest yet most profound lesson is this: before intervening in a system, you need to look at the system you are in as a whole. Austin only saw two things: rabbits and the pleasure of hunting. But there were things he did not see: an ecosystem without predators, unlimited food, a perfect climate, an enormous reproductive capacity, and most importantly, no one else had calculated what this combination would mean. Ecosystems are built upon complex and fragile balances. Every species is a part of that balance. When a species coming from outside enters this balance, chain effects are inevitable. Sometimes these effects are small, manageable. Sometimes, however, they can turn a continent upside down. Australia learned this lesson at the heaviest cost, and today it is still paying. One man's 24 rabbits reached 10 billion. The small, fluffy animals inside a crate transformed the ecology of a continent. One sentence, "could do little harm," became one of the most costly sentences in history. This story once again lays bare that ancient blindness in humanity's relationship with nature. We think we understand systems by looking at their parts, but systems are always far larger than what we see, always far more complex than we expect, and always far more fragile than we predict. Australia's plains are still full of rabbits today. The fight is still ongoing. And at the beginning of that fight stands a ship that docked at a harbor in 1859, and inside it, a wooden crate. 24 rabbits. The smallest and most devastating invasion army in history. Australia is still struggling with this problem. Do you think a solution is possible, or has a point of no return already been reached? Leave your thoughts in the comments. If this video made you think, you can show your support by liking it. And don't forget to subscribe for new videos.